afternoon, fellow Revit users. For those of you who joined for previous webinars, it's a pleasure to have you back. And for those of you who are new to this, welcome aboard. Today we're going to talk a little bit about pipe and duct routing preferences in Revit. The duct and pipe routing preferences were introduced as a feature in Revit MEP 2013. With the idea being that you can assign segments and fittings to specific size ranges for use when routing duct or pipe. Specifically, what we're going to do with our duct and pipe routing preferences is just create a couple new duct types and pipe types that will address very common issues with Revit users not necessarily seeing what they want to see with the Revit content right out of the box, and also with just making life easier with your modeling in Revit. And hopefully you'll be able to walk away from this presentation with some ideas on how to use duct and pipe routing preferences in unique ways that we haven't discussed here that will make your Revit modeling easier and more consistent. So first what we're going to do is we are going to create a new round duct type using the taps, but instead of your regular round tap, we are going to have a conical tap with a damper be the default tap that is created when you model this duct. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to load that tap with a damper family into our project, as it's not in there right away. So I'll go to load family. I will find this fitting. It's going to be, we're looking for our round takeoff with damper conical. So I've got that loaded into the project. The next thing I'm going to do is get into my project browser here, go down to the families where I'm going to create a new duct type for our round duct, and I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate our round duct with taps. I will take that new type that I've duplicated and I will name that taps with damper. Once I've done that, I can go into the type properties for this newly created duct type, and in here is where you will find your routing preferences for your duct type. So I'll go ahead and edit that. And what we want to do is we want to, we've got our preferred junction type already set up as tap, so we want to add a new tap to this junction that we selected. So I'll go ahead and click on the plus here, and I can drop down this menu and pick our round takeoff with damper conical standard that we already pulled into this project. The last thing I want to do here is I want to again click on this round takeoff with damper conical standard, and I can just set that as our first preference for the tap in our routing preferences. So I'll hit OK, and now I'll go ahead and put some duct into this project. Let's make it a little bigger here. There we go, and I'm going to create a takeoff off of this duct. And I will select our newly created duct type. That's the taps with damper under the round duct. And as you can see, we now have a tap with a damper as opposed to just a regular tap. We can also, if we want, we could have selected this regular tap, got into our properties, and selected that round takeoff with damper. But as you can see, this is going to introduce us to some problems and headaches that we don't necessarily want to deal with. We could disconnect it. We can try and reconnect it. And you're going to see that the duct is at an angle now, and we don't even have to deal with this. We've created a solution where if we want a damper to be on our duct, we just go ahead and we use this newly created duct type, taps with a damper. And voila. The next thing I want to show you, it's going to be a very, very similar process to what we did with the taps with a damper. It's probably a more commonly requested feature in Revit, though, is to have a mitered elbow that has turning vanes. If I go ahead and create, I've got my rectangular duct, mitered elbows, tap selected. If I go ahead and create an elbow here, you're going to notice that we don't have any turning vanes, which I'm sure you've seen before. So to fix this, what we're going to do is go ahead and go back to our project browser. We will again duplicate our mitered elbows family that we want to change, and I will rename it to call it mitered elbows taps with turning vanes. And before I go in and edit the routing preferences, I'm going to make sure that I've got my turning vane family, my elbow with turning vane family loaded into the project. So I'll go out to our library and I will find that fitting. And we're going to grab our rectangular elbow mitered single thickness vanes. So we've done that. We can then go in and edit our type properties, where we're going to again find our routing preferences, and under the elbow I'm going to add another selection, and that's where we're going to grab our mitered elbow with single thickness vanes, and we'll again put that to the top of our preferences so that that is what it will default to now when we create some new duct with that is that mitered elbow taps with turning vanes types. And there we are. You can see a nice elbow with turning vanes right there. The next thing I'd like to show you is a little more complex, and but again, I think a very useful feature that you will find beneficial. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new rectangular duct type that has a beveled tap as opposed to your regular straight short tap. So I'll just draw some duct here with as a takeoff to show you. Oops, let me connect that. And here is your standard short takeoff. I'm sure some of you would prefer to see a beveled takeoff. So again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to load that beveled takeoff into our project. That's a tap, and it's going to be our rectangular tap beveled. We've now got that into our project. So again, what we'll do is we will duplicate our rectangular duct type, and we will rename it again. And we'll call this mitered elbow beveled taps. Oops. There we go. Now, if I go into the type properties of this duct type and go to routing preferences to add that beveled tap, you're going to notice that it's actually, oh, it is available there, and I will move it to the top, and I will hit OK, and I will try to create that type here. There we go. And there is our beveled tap. Now, one thing you're going to notice is, unlike our damper duct type that we created, where we can easily select between the normal takeoff and our dampered takeoff, we can't actually do that with our beveled takeoff. I can't pull down and go back and select our standard rectangular takeoff. And this is where I said it gets a little more complex. What we have to do actually here is go in and edit the family of the rectangular beveled takeoff, and there's a setting called part type. The part type for our beveled takeoff doesn't match the part type for our standard takeoff. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that part type from tap perpendicular to tap adjustable, and we will load this family back into the project. And now that our part types are matching, we can go ahead and freely switch from one takeoff to the other. And you'll notice if I check my constraint to routing preferences here, it's going to make it so the only selections we have available are what we have specified within our routing preferences, in this case being our rectangular tap beveled and our standard rectangular takeoff. And lastly, what I'd like to show you is pipe routing preference, specifically with your sanitary piping. If you have done any work with sanitary piping, you've probably noticed that out of the box you are not given any Y option with your sanitary T fittings, and I will show you that. So if I go ahead and bring some pipe off of this here you can see our sanitary T, and generally when you hit this plus button with a T, it'll convert that fitting into a cross. Unfortunately, that does not work out of the box with the sanitary T fitting. You'll see an error down here that says the converted fitting was not defined in the routing preferences. Please assign one on the connected curve types. So I will hit cancel, and I will go ahead and edit our routing preferences for this pipe type. So if I locate my pipes in the project browser and edit the PVC type, we'll go into our routing preferences, and clearly you can see that there's definitely not a cross family applied in the routing preferences. So we'll go ahead and select one that is available here. We can select the cross generic standard, hit OK, and you'll see we get an error that says your fittings and cross are all set to none size range. One of the interesting features and very useful features of the routing preferences is over to your right here. You'll see that you can set the minimum and maximum size for the fittings that you are specifying in your routing preferences. This is something where you can easily set certain fittings to be used for certain size ranges and just follow these size ranges up across your pipe type and easily meet your firm's standards in the process. So I'm going to go ahead and set our minimum size to all, meaning that this generic standard cross is going to go ahead and be used in all of our pipe sizes. I'll hit OK. I'll hit OK again. Now when I select this T and I convert it to a cross, you'll see that we do indeed have a cross, but that is definitely not a cross that we want to use for our sanitary purposes. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to dive out to our library here and insert a more appropriate cross for our sanitary systems. So I'll go out to the pipe, fittings, PVC, socket type, and in our DWV here, we are going to see that we've got our T double sanitary, T reducing double vent. I'm just going to go ahead and grab all of these, bring them in, and we'll be able to go ahead and get a better look in project of what we think is going to be more suitable for our needs. So I will again edit our routing preferences for our PVC pipe type, and I'm going to add a couple more instances for our cross, and I will grab some of these crosses that I just added from the library. I'll hit OK, and I'll hit OK again. Now if we convert this to a cross, we're going to see something that definitely looks more appropriate for a sanitary system. And since I added a couple more types, like I said, we can go ahead and kind of audition these other crosses to see what we actually want to use, or even what we want to set as our primary routing preference. And we can still allow the other ones to be there as optional crosses. So as you can see, we can just go ahead and change these. And I think I definitely like our first one here, if only because it's going to be easier to place these sanitary fittings in a plumbing system. So that's all I've got for you. If there are any questions, I'll go ahead and take those. Okay, I've got a question here asking about using secondary routing preference fittings. I'm not entirely sure what that is asking, but I think what you're asking about. So if I go back into the routing preferences on this pipe type, I believe what you're asking about is where, again, we've got three different routing preferences assigned for the cross fitting on our PVC type, and our first um, preference is this T double sanitary schedule 40, while our secondary preference is this T long sweep double sanitary. And again, if you want to switch between the two, you just select the fitting and you go over to your properties where you can select the secondary or tertiary, so forth, preferences for that pipe type. And again, this is where the constraint routing preferences checkbox comes in handy because it does keep you locked into only what you have defined in your routing preferences. So I hope that answers your question. If not, go ahead and get to us, and I will answer this on a personal basis and make sure that you get the information you're looking for. Second question I've got here is, in the routing preference, can we place 45-degree Ys? You certainly can place 45-degree Ys, but I'm not sure that there is a 45-degree Y out of the box. Let's go out to our family library here and see what we've got. Okay, here we go. We certainly do. So I'm going to go ahead and load this into the project, and I will go back into the type properties of this family, edit the routing preferences, and I will add a junction, and I'll see if we can select that Y. And it looks like we can't. So what we can do, I'm going to cancel out of here, is we can go locate that pipe fitting in our project browser. 45-degree Y. I'm going to edit this family, and I'm going to change this from a Y to a T. Now when I load this back into the project, overwrite the existing version, and I go back into our routing preferences for the PVC pipe type, I should be able to go to our T junction routing preferences, where I now see that 45-degree Y available as an option. Here, I will go ahead and actually set that as our preferred option, default option, and let's go ahead and insert some pipe. And of course, we get some unexpected results. Might have better luck if we try to trim. Oops. Looks like I didn't save my routing preferences with that. I did, but it's not defaulting to it. So what we're dealing with here, I believe, is an insertion point issue. Where we're not easily able to use this 45-degree Y. What we can do is delete the connected pipe and then change it and then draw some pipe out. It's not necessarily an ideal workflow, but there is the ability to use your routing preferences to use this 45-degree Y. This, I know, is a very common issue that people are having with Revit, and again, this is something I will look into further. This is something I think I definitely would like to do another webinar or short video about is an easier workflow for this specific 45-degree Y issue. So keep yourself posted, or keep your eyes open for that. Expect that to come. Let's see. I have a question about adding insulation and having a particular family where the insulation does not adapt to the shape of the fitting. This again is a problem that I have heard quite a bit about. If you want to add insulation, it's as easy as that. We've got insulation. I've seen, let's see if the bevel tap works, and it does. Unfortunately, in my research for this problem where the insulation isn't conforming to the duct fitting, the research I've done has shown that Autodesk simply does not give access to the API portion that deals with the duct fittings and the insulation. So I can't really help you much with that right now. But what I will do is I will submit a ticket to Autodesk and again get some further information on this and get this out to you guys and see if we can get some more concrete answers on this. What is turning out to be a fairly common problem as well. So, like I said, any questions that were not answered here, I will follow up with you and make sure we get you an answer to that. Thanks for joining our pipe and duct routing preferences webinar. It's much appreciated to have you here for these webinars. And for those of you in Minnesota, we hope to see you Tuesday, September 16th.